Hey, what's up, everybody? Tony Bacigalupo here, Community Program Manager, Team SPI, and you are hanging out with me and Heather and Karaminder, and it's my office hours. Do these office hours every Wednesday afternoon, and my focus tends to be on community since that's my background as a community expert, but I also help to run the boot camps, so I have a lot of experience helping people work through setting up their email mailing lists, their podcasts, their online courses, things like that. And I've worked with helping entrepreneurs with their businesses over the last 15 years or so. So I've just got lots of experience helping people work through both the businessy type things that come up and the not so businessy things, the personal, psychological, emotional journey that it is building your own business and trying to do it in a way that is sustainable and compassionate to us. So Heather and Karaminder are two folks who've just become regulars in office hours, and we might have a couple of other folks join as we go. But the basic gist of it is that we got this hour to just hang and talk about whatever it is that is alive for us right now that might be of value for us to discuss. And we always end up coming up with some really fun stuff to talk about. So maybe if we were just talking, Heather, before we hit record, maybe Karaminder, do we want to start? Tell us a little bit about what's going on in your world. You mentioned right before I hit record that you may be a little busy. So maybe we could talk about prioritizing and optimizing today. We'll see. We'll see.
I'll give you a little bit of history for some background and context. I accidentally started a community, didn't mean to do it. It's kind of just happens. In like June 2021, so just last year, and kind of left a very open structure, freeform, and got 45 people to come in. And then learning about community since like really seriously from fall onwards, where, okay, there's not really much activity, they're not really doing anything. And I realized it's because I didn't give enough structure. So I'm implementing structure. I'm have like recurring events, like office hours, like a co-working hour, feedback hour. So I've got volunteers from the community that I, talk to. I always try and keep in touch with them, do the unscalable thing of checking in on them, see how they are. But I am having the challenge and struggle because I'll say this: the goal is to open up the community in Q2 for paid memberships for people kind of outside. So right now it's private and small. And it's been that way since June. And it's because we're all part of a single cohort and we didn't like what was happening at the other place where they were hosting their Slack community. So I said, hey, I've got this thing and you're not joining this because it's the anti that thing. It's a place where you want to be because this is the point of this place is to, I help course creators. So if you haven't launched a course, the goal is to help you launch a course. And if you have launched a course, then the goal is to help you grow your course. So that's the community. And I'm kind of feeling a little like I know when someone posts, I'm always surprised to see how quickly the thread count grows. And I talk to other people in the community, one-on-one, and ask, like, when you have an issue, when you have a problem, where do you go to first? And they usually message individuals, Twitter, where else, but they don't usually think of, it's not first in their mind to think, ask in the channel. So the challenge is, how can I, as best as I can, kind of regenerate? I know I'm not going to have everyone, but kind of either wake up or let people know, like, this thing isn't dead. It's not a ghost town of a Slack channel or Slack workplace, that there's actually active events happening. There's things going on, and you can get help for what you're building. And that, hey, new blood's coming in. And while the OGs, I'm not trying to have them pay for at least the first year. The new members do pay to help with all the work that I put into it, and also pay for like things like a pro account for Slack and a Zapier account and things that, your domain name and little things like that, right? So
yeah,
that's kind of where I'm at. And sometimes a little despair of like, I'm sinking in so much time into this, but I realize, no, a lot of what I built can also be used for any community that I want to build going forward. Because I always had a vision of building a community. I didn't realize that this was going to be it. This one was going to be the thing that I wanted to build, but I realized no, all the kookiest people that I like that are my kind of people are course creators, and I'm happy to spend time there and yeah, do that. So that was a lot. Hopefully I've given you enough context, Tony.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious. So we're in this place of transition with your community because it started out as one thing. You kind of want to be able to have it grow into another thing.
Well, it kind of started out as it's a community of course creators. It was always that, but it was unstructured. It was like you host your accountability groups. You can do what you want here in the Slack, but that's not structure.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only thing it's changing into is same focus. Now it's defined as, okay, some of us haven't launched and some of us have. And what does this community mean? What's the purpose of this place? And how can I facilitate events and things for that? Surprisingly, the most popular thing that I have is my co-working hour, which I was surprised about, and is the most easiest thing for me in the world to do and to run. But people are very happy about that. And it's a little, the things that took more effort to do aren't as popular.
Can I ask you, I'm thinking about doing that too, because SPI does it and I think it's nice. How do you share about it and how do you run it such that it turns out to be so popular? What do you think is what's working for you?
Are you specifically asking about co-working as opposed to other events?
Specifically the co-working, yeah.
I treat the co-working as an event and therefore gets the same treatment as any other event. I actually think I didn't share it as much, which is weird because you'd think, well, you didn't share as much, then how do people know and find out about it? And I think just people were excited about it. Maybe it's a time slot. I don't know. But what I thought was going to be a bi-weekly event or maybe even a once a month event, I turned into a once a week event. And now, to be fair, I've only run it twice. So it's only 2 weeks running so far.
Okay.
But that's a good question. One thing I am building out right now is a communication system. So I haven't tapped the email newsletter part of things yet. But that is literally what I'm working on and building because, and the idea is to automate at least the part in the email where it says, here are the upcoming events, because we have a calendar and from Notion to be able to populate that data instead of me typing it out each time. I hate reinventing the wheel. I have to do that, it won't get done. So I got to automate that of like upcoming events, past events you've missed, so any recordings get shown there. And then the rest is actually original material. Like I write and I share what are the cool resources that I found and shared in the community this week. Yeah, that's the plan.
Is it possible for us to frame things in terms of like transformations or like kind of, like moments in their journey when they are going to be, trying to get from point A to point B, maybe starting with the new folks coming in, but then also thinking even in terms of existing folks, how we might orient the programming and the way that we onboard people based on, what that could be. Yeah. Does that make sense?
I think so. I'm going to show you a whimsical that I very quickly mocked up yesterday in another little Zoom workshop. If you don't mind, if I'm allowed to screen share.
Please, yes, go for it.
Okay. This maybe will help with designing the onboarding. So remember, I haven't onboarded anyone since the beginning of time. But
Since
it is, oh, come on, get out of the way. There we go. So this is the, say theoretical, but this will be the way when paying members are onboarded. This is the, hopefully this, you guys can read this and see it. For
I can see it. It looks great.
And it makes sense.
Oh man, this is great. That's given me some inspiration. Very good.
Oh, thanks, Tony.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. So you've got an application, you start in the top left, you get approved, email, you're in, welcome to the community, here's the video. That leads to a Calendly, they can get the one-on-one. Great. Keep going to the right, there's a payment and intake form. They've been approved. Now you can go into
the big thing is to pay It's like, that's the big barrier of like, okay, then you spend, the intake form is going to be at least half hour, 45. It's detailed. It's like asking you about your course. It's what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. So that helps me with pairing people who are at similar points in their journey. The journey matters. I've mapped out the journey in like if you haven't launched it, the journey is very much like a ladder. You kind of have to do step 1, step 2, step 3. But when you have launched, there isn't a ladder. It's not A to B. It's more of a, what do you want to focus on? Do you want to focus on your operations of your course? Do you want to focus on the what other skills do you want to build? Facilitation, upping your Zoom. My course is called Course Charisma. So how to have charisma and have people coming back to your course and getting more people into your course as well, via the way you present yourself and how you present everything. So there's that. And there's also the biggest challenges for everyone is audience building. So which audience do you want to focus on? You know, very patron saint Patrick Flynn always says that he took a year to focus on each like channel. So he took a year to focus on YouTube. He took a year to focus on, I want to say email was one of those. I can't remember, but I believe so. The idea is that he focused on that and not distracted himself with other channels or audiences, just focused on that. So that is the intention of the audience builders. Like, who I ask, what do you want to focus on? And they can switch it quarter to quarter because it's a quarterly cadence. And that way, if they say Twitter, then I make sure that Twitter resources that are found and shared go into their weekly email that goes to that kind of tag group, focusing on that audience. That probably went way farther, but yeah, the payment is the big deal. Pay that and then start with the intake form.
Yeah, so then take us through that. So you do the long intake form, and then I'm seeing the onboarding live Zoom.
Yeah, they only get the link because I have to provide an incentive after they finish the form. The next step after you finish, then you get the link to the invite to the live onboarding session, which depending on how many signups, depending on, you know, which time zones, the intention is to do 1, but it needs to be 2, then it'll be 2. You know, APAC in the evening, America, Europe in the morning, and then choices to join that. And always make sure to give a tour of a feature before you give the link to it. Always do that, because otherwise you're clicking the link and not listening to you. Right, Tony, you look guilty.
I completely feel you on that. That is a good best practice. Yeah, it's always hard to get people to watch a thing, even if you kind of require it. But it is.
Well, if it's live,
yeah.
And the idea behind doing it live is, okay, here's a shared Google Calendar. I'll give you a quick tour. That's like 5 minutes, not a big deal. And then give them the link and give 10 minutes to like allow them to actually add it. So holding space for them to actually do it.
Yeah.
That's the idea. And then next thing is the Notion Knowledge Hub tour. There's a link, sign up, 5-10 minutes, let them do that. And then the last one, of course, is the Slack. Because once that's like letting the barn doors open and all the sheep, I'm not calling them my members sheep, but all the animals then, you know, rush out into the field, and then they get to play and do all sorts of stuff. So I feel that's why it's the last step, and it's very purposeful in that way. And then that's why there's a down arrow saying, you know, the onboarding buddy reaches out. So a buddy being I'm pairing veteran plus rookie, and I'm kind of don't know whether it should be one-on-one. It depends how many people you have signed up, but I feel also 2 veterans on 4 rookies is also fine. So being in a little pod, so that the rookies get to know each other as well. But that also expires, this pod, or at least the veterans expire from that group at the end of that quarter. So there's not intended that that continues, because then the veterans, if they're volunteering their time, they can then help another new set of recruits.
Right.
But the idea is that to strengthen connections, community is all about connection, right? Connections between other people. And so trying to facilitate that and make sure that works well. And then off on the far right, I know you're curious, is a 30-day survey of, this was just very quick. I learned this from Steph, who's running the community for the Ship 30 membership. And she said it, and I was like, that's a good idea. So I slapped it in here. That's why it's like 30 days there.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
Okay, so tell me more about.
I can also stop screen share if you'd like.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you can stop the screen share. That's fine. Okay, so talk to me about like what let's say I'm a new customer joining this community. I want to pay to join this community. Why am I joining today? Like, what am I looking to achieve that caused me to decide, like, I need to invest in this now because there's a thing I'm trying to do?
So there's a lot of course creator courses out there. We're talking Disco, there's Maven Accelerator, there's even the heroic online courses from SPI. Is that correct, Tony?
St. Patrick, that's right.
Yeah, make sure I get the affiliate link for that.
Yeah.
And so it's great to learn. It's just like playing a board game, right? You got to read the rules before you can play. And so going through these courses, a number of people I talk to, they learn the rules of like what it is to do and to build, and they're building along the way, but they kind of don't know what the light at the end of the tunnel looks like. And it's only until the end of the course they're like, oh, I see, I get it. And then they still need to build. And when they build, they need support. They have questions, they need feedback. And that's the community that I call it a non-beginner community, because you need to know how difficult and bad and painful this journey is. And therefore, that's when you are allowed in. That's why the application. And that's why I call it a non-beginner. I wouldn't call it pro, but I call it non-beginner because if you haven't taken a course in how to build a course or have experience in just doing something similar like that or teaching, then you're not going to know what exactly to do, and you'll inundate the community with questions, and that'll drive the pros. It'll be annoying and it'll drive them out. So I have to play gatekeeper. But the point is that they want to launch. This is a career change where making an income from course creation it's a bit life-changing. And the bigger motive here is that I feel creators have the trifecta of the 3 C's. Got to have a course, got to have a community, you got to have a coaching / consulting practice. 3 C's, the holy trinity of creators, if you will. I'm not counting merch. I'm not counting the fun t-shirts that Heather has in her background. I'm just focusing on those like 3 big like tent poles of revenue, business, and kind of being a creator where you can actually sustain and live a good life doing this. So that's kind of the big goal there. But yeah, the focus is, as you said, what is urgent for a new member is that they want to launch.
Gotcha.
And they need accountability, they need help, they have questions. Who's using what are the best tools out there? What works, what's buggy? I'm thinking of, like, for example, like Luma events. Sometimes when you're doing the series and you're quite long, they're a bit buggy, especially if you go over 6. And what I learned is because any more than 6 attachments in an email, it's like no good, no. So your limit is 6, and that's why it's buggy after 6. So maybe it's not their fault, maybe it's just the infrastructure of email. Who knows? Yeah, these are the things that, like, that is a quick example of like stuff that we talk about, stuff that we learned in our community of who knew this little email attachment limit and how it affects your members or your course students to be able to attend your courses and making sure the courses show up on their calendar.
Right.
Hopefully that was a good answer.
Yeah. It's helping me get a better understanding of like the member experience journey, which leads to a lot of other like stuff we can talk more about. Because I'm picturing, okay, I've joined your community. I'm in this position. I'm a non-beginner. I've got my course situation. I'm trying to, get that nailed down. And now I'm in this community and I want to ensure that this community is helping me get the help that I need. So, how do I do that? What's the way that I start to interact with the community and get value from it? Is it a structured thing that happens at a specific time? Or is it open-ended or somewhere in between?
So one of the things that is built out is when during the intake form is asking, this is actually from the earlier form too, asking where they are in the community journey. It's pull down, it's a list to show where are you. So for example, I'll say for myself, like I'm at landing page, right? So I've got my curriculum strategy of like what is the, say, overall outline of my curriculum, my pricing, and when I want to launch, and what, of course, what you're teaching that assumes you already have that. And so I need to build, right, the landing page. And when a new cohort comes in, that pairing people together as close as possible on that journey. And I think a maximum, say, pod of or group of 4 is a great way of starting accountability groups, and also setting the expectations that accountability groups expire. So this is the accountability. You fill out the form of where you are in your community, where you are in your course creator journey. You tell me, I pair 4 people up as close as they can be, and let them know this expires at the end of the quarter, where you can fill out the form again if you want to be in another accountability group, because some people will maybe race ahead. And so when it comes time to answering that question again next quarter, someone's already launched or someone just pre-launch, right? And then pairing them together again. And that way you kind of rebuild connections, not rebuild, but you build new connections with new members instead of just the same people. And you get, it's like the accountability groups are also held. No events are held in the community on Mondays because it's reserved for accountability groups and masterminds. So it's recommended that that's the start of the week. That's the best time to meet. And you don't have to worry about conflicts because there won't be any conflicts with any office hours or events on a Monday. So it's giving structure, and also like I hold a whole Notion page of best ways or best practices you can use to run your accountability group.
Are you saying that, like, if somebody says, I'm on the landing page step, then intrinsically that means the goal is to finish the landing page by the end of the accountability group?
That would be like, I would call it one ladder rung of like, okay, it's done, it's published, it's out there. It is a big step. And if you just even if you just do that one step during a whole accountability group, that's still fine. But what if after you've launched, then you've got, you actually do run your course and it's within a quarter is a long time, 3 months. Then great, you've now stepped up or stepped through or stepped up the ladder 2, 3, maybe 4 rungs, because that's just, you got that rhythm, you've got the flow, you're going, right?
So you're leaving it up to each accountability group. Like, yes, they're all at landing page step.
Yes.
But maybe person A just wants to get that done in the quarter. They're very busy. Person B wants to do 3 rungs. They might, that's fine. You're not saying
there should be no limit.
They should just decide between themselves. You're not giving them like any guidelines on what to set as their goals or anything like that.
No, not at all. We do have a huge resources section I've built out or been building out of, like, if you want to learn in a self-help kind of way of, let's say, Twitter, for example, that it's a curated, whoever the experts are in community in our Twitter, they've filled out where top 10 accounts to follow to build your Twitter growth, if you will, or to build Twitter growth, right? Here are paid courses that are recommended that people take that they like. Here are free resources of, perhaps it's a free tutorial, perhaps it's a free PDF guide. I see those a lot. Some of these are like 100 tweet swipe files that you can sign up for and get. It's just these little resources. If books are applied, then yes, you read some books. I don't think it applies for Twitter, but it may apply for something like community building. But I call these skill builders, this category, and also audience builders. So Twitter would be an audience builder. But so for landing page, we have a number of different like recommended links and resources to help with that. And I'm careful to say there's no teaching that happens in this community, but there's a shit ton of learning. So teaching means someone's prepared a deck and here's what you're going to do and here's what you learn. No, there's none of that. There's office hours like, oh, you got questions? Oh, you need feedback for your landing page? Great, show up with what you need. And whoever's like kind of similar in that area, or I pair them together and they get feedback from each other. And the great thing about having feedback from course creators, fellow course creators, is that being in the same space, being in the same industry, more clued in, as opposed to like asking somebody who, no disrespect, like a plumber. They're like, I don't know, landing page looks fine to me. Right? So having that specifically is a big help. But Heather, really, I don't believe there shouldn't be anything to hold someone back. Because if they've gotten a role or momentum, capitalize on it. But the idea is to start from the same point. This is what I consider or read that's called a journey group. You could think of this a bit like college when you began. You started college, made friends, you're kind of all at the same point, starting freshman, right? And now, no matter where you've gone, how far you've gone, you have your college buddies. You've had an experience with them that you've spent so much time with and gone through, and whether you all had different disciplines either as well, but you're still friends. So at least starting at the same point is there. And I'm sure, I'm using this analogy, and one big part of the analogy is I'm saying stuff expires at the end of the quarter, whereas college is like 4+ years, 5 in my case.
Yeah. I guess I think it's probably fine. I could just imagine somebody feeling like not being very well matched to their pod if they're the most ambitious or the least ambitious among their pod, that it won't feel like easy to become friends. But
I think that's fair.
When you only have a few people coming in, like you can't make too many requirements or you're not going to be able to match anybody with anybody, right?
Correct. And I would hope that the filter of paying for a year membership is the filter of those who are, I would hope, ambitious, because the price point to get in, it's 4 figures for a yearly membership.
Yeah, that's true.
I feel like that's a good filter of like, if you're not that ambitious, but you want to build slowly and this is still what you want, great, because that's what you're going to get. But I feel that would be I'd hope, Heather, like I have no way of definitively answering your question, but I would hope that mechanism, that gate, is a good sift or filter for those who want to be here are here. And kind of like, put your, like voting with your wallet. How many courses have all of us purchased that we're like, yeah, this is great, I want to learn it, and it's self-paced, and we haven't touched it or taken it, and it's sitting there. We paid for it. So it's a bit like we voted for it, and in a way we want to spend in a what we aspire to, right? We spend in that direction. So this is kind of that same principle, that same demo, but the idea is that we're going to help each other. That's having a community, having people who care, who have gone down this path, to be able to help and learn as well, because we have to wear so many hats. Oh my God, Tony, the copywriting hat, right, is one that I'm also just starting to like collect materials to start putting on and start practicing. So it's an important hat.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of hats, and and so for the people you're working with, they're going to have relatively predictable needs as far as when they need to wear a hat that they're not as comfortable with, and they need a hand with that.
And everyone in the community that joins, I ask them, what are they an expert in, and what do they need help in? And so in those categories, we have a little expert directory. So you want to talk to an expert in automation, then here are the people that said they were experts in automation, and therefore things that you said that you need help with, you have people that you can talk to and reach out to through the member directory. I think you guys can tell I've thought this through quite a bit, like a little bit.
One thing that I think when you ask, if I picture myself coming into your community, if I were asked what I'm an expert in, I'm going to tell you what I'm willing to answer questions about, not what I'm actually an expert in. There's probably several things that I wouldn't even mention that actually I could tell you a lot about, but I'm not going to put a target on myself to ask me about them. Yeah.
Fair enough.
What?
The idea is it's just a bunch of checkboxes, and you checkbox what, and these are items related to community. I'm not going to ask if you're an expert in cooking risotto.
Right.
I mean, you could.
I guess I'm kind of telling to Tony, well, you all ask us an SPI Pro just to write a little tagline of what we want to be known for, basically, and it's very free form. So I just say, this is what I hope you want to talk to me about. This is what I think is most interesting about me, kind of.
Right. Because it's and this is, I think, especially common for entrepreneurs, is that a great many of us would identify as multi-potentialites. And so there are a lot of things I could talk with you about, but there are probably a smaller number of things that I enjoy talking about and really feel like right now I can provide the most value. Right. So I think framing it in terms of, what do you like to talk about, or what do you want to invite people to talk with you about, is a nice way of looking at it. Yeah.
What is so what you put up, Caraminder, about your flow and how you'll get assigned a buddy is something that we've been talking about for Protospiel Online community. It's confusing a little bit for us because we're not a membership site at all. We are a 3 times a year now convention that people return to, and we're thinking and probably going to need to put in more in between little community events that are light lifts, like I said, like co-working and stuff. But we have talked about maybe, I'm afraid to even say this because it's going to be on YouTube and nobody's going to watch, because I'm not promising we're going to do it, but the buddy thing is like very interesting. For the new person, I've heard from many of my customers like who eventually settled in and were happy, and I get a chance to talk to them about their experience. They're like, yeah, when I first came in here, I felt like so awkward, like I'm just the loser, nobody knows me, everybody knows each other, like how am I going to make friends here, this is scary. They, and people who tell me that, they ended up being, there was no need for them to worry. They were quite good at being personable and they became everybody's friend, and that's why they're still around. But the people who worry about that, and it really was pretty painful for them, or unfortunately, the very first like group of people they got together with and played a game with went badly. So they felt like, oh, I needed to retreat. Especially what we do is we play test games, right? So if somebody comes and they're a first time designer, that maybe they haven't play tested even in person ever before, or even if it's the first time they've play tested online, or maybe play tested this game with this group, they're feeling very vulnerable. And what we've actually added now, I've heard back from my audience that they've seen when there's a play test and they're being real hard on them, because almost our community is about being hard and honest with you. Like, yeah, you're going to get it straight from us. There is a little bit of that sharp edge of like, yeah, we're not going to sugarcoat it. We're going to tell you if it's broken, and that's what you're getting. That's part of the promise.
Right.
However, if you're brand new and you're like, here's my game, guys, like,
it gets ripped to
and people
shreds.
really pile on, it can be really damaging. And I've heard from some of my audience members, they put it out there that they're in a play test where people are really piling on, and then somehow it comes out that this is the first time this person has play tested this game, and everyone's like, oh, whoa, we're sorry, it's actually great, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They soften, or they figure out how to say the good points and be encouraging when they realize the person's new. So we for the next event we're going to do, I believe we figured out how to set up a system where people get marked with a little icon that they're new. And we're going to communicate that this means you're new. So that hopefully from the beginning, people are like, oh, they're new, don't be mean. So that bummer situation where somebody feels really discouraged from their first interaction doesn't happen as often. But anyway, all that to say, the noob, if they were given a but, maybe this is a simpler solution actually, that I'm already saying we did it, so it's not a maybe we'll see kind of thing. But the buddy though seems like it could really help coach people on how to behave. That's what I kind of like about also that's something that stuck out to me about your flow is like everybody coming into the community is going to get a 30-minute call with you. So you're going to like set this tone from the very beginning of what it's like to interact. Like your personality is very likely to be the thing that has set the personality of the group, right? Because your mind is the thing that's creating all of the programs and all. It's not very scalable. I think you even said that.
Which is
That's why I
fine
keep
at
the
that
price high.
price point. Yeah.
Keep the price high. Price high, dude.
Yeah, and mine kind of somewhat needs to be low. I mean, for this thing that already exists, the price is established. Maybe there could be another thing that's more expensive. But the other thing I like about it is, from your perspective anyway, you're going to talk to each of those people. And you're going to have a chance to go like, oh, I detect a little bit of ickiness about you in this area. Maybe I can encourage you that's not so great, like push back a little bit with you in that conversation. to like help just set the tone. And then as they're coming in, they're less likely to be like, oh, I don't know how I'm supposed to behave. I don't know what's okay to say and what's not okay to say. Yeah, so I like that. I think that's a really interesting idea. I don't know if it should only be you're the only person, or if you could scale it better by having like 10 of you be the people that potentially could do that onboarding call.
I would love to be able to pay other community members to help and do that. And the whole point is to take the money and be able to get that. And I know I have to start it. Like I have to start the flywheel before it can just kind of continue, and then having a community manager to take over a lot of the operations and day-to-day roles, like get myself a Tony, who handles the office hours. Maybe get myself a Jake Klaus. I heard he's freelance right now. Right. But Heather, a good suggestion as well for the new people. Do you have a host in those feedback? Is it a Zoom live call?
It's in Discord.
It's Discord.
But
It'd be good to ask or prompt who's new here before, like who's first time, and that way they raise their hands and you guys know the rules. First timers, go easy, gentle. Maybe that's just a way for like allowing the host or whoever's coordinating running to get a prompt from someone to say, hey, whose first time is it? Who's first timer here?
Yeah, that's possible to do. The way it actually ends up happening is that there's a host in a central hub. Everybody comes to the central hub, talk, get matched, then they go away privately, and the host isn't there watching them anymore.
Yep.
We call them moderators. But while they're all together forming their group in the first place, the moderator can be trained to call out, oh, you're new. In fact, they don't even have to ask. Well, maybe it's polite to ask them, are you new? But like that's the one thing that is a little weird about what we're doing. They're just getting labeled as you're new to this group. You're new to this group. Doesn't mean you're new to play testing or whatever. So they could ask that question.
Yeah. It's good to feel like you're seen, right? That okay, new guy, new person. We're gonna slight say introductory onboarding when you got paired up with so-and-so. Just run them through what to expect and how comfortable they are with feedback.
We're thinking about making it when they ask for the play test at all, maybe adding something in that's like what kind of feedback I'm ready for. Something like that. Maybe kind of some set points like this or this. Pick, like, just check your box.
Yes. I was going to say, I think that there's probably a way you can create a designation for what kind of feedback you're looking for, and not, there's probably a way of characterizing it that doesn't have to be like be nice or be mean, but like probably a more roundabout way of saying, like, I'm looking for a teardown because I really want to solidify this before I make it live or whatever, versus like I'm testing an idea and I want to get vibes. And so there's like very specific language implications to each of those contexts that I think would really help a lot. So we've talked about this before, right? Like subreddits. What I find really, really interesting about subreddits is that they have different cultural expectations based on the subreddit that you're in. And so there's like I believe the /r/science subreddit has like a very strict rule about like your responses have to be substantive in nature around the science of the conversation, like whatever it is. It's like you're only in that room, you're only allowed to post scientific answers to the questions, right? But then there's like another subreddit, and I don't know what it's called, but it's like science chat or whatever, where you could post an article about a thing and people can talk smack about it and, post memes or whatever. But there's a very clear, like, kind of cultural agreement that like, this is how this room works. In this room, we talk like this. And in this room, we talk like this. So if you want, so like, just so everybody's clear, that's how this room works, And I find that seems to create a clear set of expectations, which I think is what's most important. And I think you can absolutely translate that, like so much of what we talk about is, community, how a community gathers, and the context of it is really of supreme importance. And so the more that you're able to frame, okay, this is a gathering for this type of activity and feedback, which is gentler. And this is an activity for people who are ready to like step into the arena, or like take it to the limit. Like you could play up the that other side of it. Yeah.
What would you say is the veterans, what's in it for them when they're getting matched into that pod?
I always ask because it's a volunteer role. Oh, sorry. Do you mean ask me, Tony? I'm sorry.
I'm asking you.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Tony can
No,
weigh in,
please.
but I'm asking you how you're
What's in it
planning
for them?
to do it right now. Yeah.
What's the acronym for that? What's in it for them? Like with them?
Yeah.
Something like that. So first I always ask volunteer, and it's people who are, it's a very good question. I'm trying to articulate it now. A lot of it is people who want to be able to meet new people as well. And people who feel a sense of, how do you say this? When the community gives so much value to somebody that when they're asked, hey, can you help out? We'd love for you to just help by answering questions. And because they're gonna have questions, these new people are gonna have questions. And that way you can kind of help direct them. Hey, you should check out office hours with Tony. You should join this mastermind group of this subject matter if you want.
Reciprocity, is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, because it's a lot of that. I see that. I'm always surprised by it. I have office hours currently for course operations, facilitation, workflows and automation. And there's one more, I can't remember, but user research. And these are people who are experts in that area, who even run their own course in that area, who volunteer. And I set the expectation for them, like they don't have to prepare anything. They just need to show up, and then they can just handle the questions. Or if they have something that they personally want to share or try or experiment or get feedback on, the person running the office hour can do that. It's like, Tony, what do you get out of office hours? It's a bit like,
Oh man, so it energizes me, it inspires me, right? But I also end up coming away with, if I were a little bit more proactive, I would be able to come away from every one of these conversations with a topic that I could turn around and turn into a YouTube video or a blog post, and that I could use to help me map a future product or service offering. So like if you do enough office hours or you lead enough, discussions, and you take notes on the common topics that come up, you're starting to come up with the material that could end up being the outline for an online course or, a new product or something like that.
That's true for course creators and people like the people who are on Team SPI. For me, I don't think that my buddies would be like, oh, good, I can create content about this and learn about some I guess what they might get is more friends who would just off the cuff play test with them off to the side when they need it.
Yeah. I mean, that counts for something, right? Like having the camaraderie, having the sense that you are part of a community and that there are people that you can do fun stuff with. I think, it counts. Absolutely.
The chance to get closer to a few people.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
What I would be offering them. Yeah.
Right. Cultivating that sense of, hey, look, we are a community of folks who are struggling in terms of connection. So if you can give people a way to feel like they are a part of something and that they make a connection, a meaningful connection to somebody, whether as a helpee or as a helper, they're going to be grateful, and a number of people are going to be interested in putting some effort into that as a part of their gratitude.
I'll say this as well from just my own personal experience throughout life, is that whenever I've volunteered to help, I've always met the most people, gotten the most connections, and because I'm there helping, it's not an expectation of, say, payment or anything like that. It's more about being kind of connected and almost being at the table where decisions are even made and being included with that. And that has helped me so much more than just kind of sitting there consuming and getting what I'm being told. But being on the inside, being like part of volunteer, I call them leaders in my community. Being a leader, you just get, there's a lot more connection and there's a lot more interaction even with me. And then I'm like, oh, you need to talk to so-and-so. So it's not, yes, I have a network, other people have a network, but those are the ones that are discussing, sharing, talking more, and more time is spent just interacting. So I know that from a selfish point of view, I've always experienced and seen and felt that by volunteering and by giving my time, it's led to me being, it kind of like raises my stakes, raises my authority that much more quickly. Because I know these guys, I talk with them, and that does help a lot, especially even when I have questions.
Seems like it also would be good for your self-esteem.
You feel like you belong.
Not in a negative way. I don't want to make it sound like, oh yeah, like you're just doing this to trump yourself up or puff yourself up, I guess.
Yeah.
One of the elements of happiness is giving back.
Mhm.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Happiness is service, and feeling useful. And people really appreciate when they have an opportunity to feel useful, for sure. Now, there's a balancing act here, right? Because especially if you're running a business, you don't want to create a perception that you're selling somebody else's time, and so you do want to be careful about how you are providing value and the way that you are positioning yourself as a facilitator. You want to make sure that ultimately everybody understands that you're still, holding space ultimately, and you're still responsible for providing value. So that, maybe in theory, the whole thing wouldn't work if there weren't peer value being created. But if it ever came down to it, if nobody else showed up, you could still provide the value, right? Like this office hours is a good example where so much of the value of this comes from the fact that you all are helping each other. But if only one of you showed up, I'd still be able to work with you. And, I'm still committing to making sure that your needs are met, whether through me directly or through, putting you in the right room with the right people at the right time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I do, in the circle post, I said I had no questions, and maybe you talk more about this next week instead, because we don't have very much time. But one thing that is going on for me is that's what we were sort of talking about right before you hit record, is that there's a need now in our community for people to start learning a bunch of stuff that they didn't have to know before to be able to connect with each other going forward, just because of like a shift of the tools that are available to us now. And part of how we're planning to address that is multicast live streams. So we recently got Restream, and we have it hooked up to YouTube and Twitch and Facebook. Twitch, I didn't realize this until just recently. It only stays up for 30 days. So it's going to just expire and fall away, but the replay will be on YouTube. So whatever we do, it's still going to be like a resource, and we can put it in a playlist on YouTube. But I'm feeling really this way. And also my co-organizer, who's like the most excited, and driven to do the live stream stuff. We were very like, okay, let's get a bunch of different people to help, so that we can get the most content or whatever.
Yeah.
And as we looked down the barrel of that, it was like, yes, but there are so many things that people will just like say, and they're not even thinking about how offensive they are. And it's really not our brand. And that's pretty scary to me, to let go of that much control. I already let go of a lot of control, letting people just kind of be in their private groups and sometimes sort of make each other feel crappy. That's already something I feel like it can accidentally happen, right? Sometimes it's because somebody is coming to the table feeling small in the first place, and the people are not really being mean, but the person is just not primed for taking it. But anyway, there's a lot of vetting that has to be done. If it's actually our public facing, I don't feel like I have a lot of community members that I think are great, but I haven't spent so much time with them to really know they're not going to say something that objectifies women or is racist or whatever. They're going to make some, or they're going to just be really divisive in some way about like, this is how it is, you know. It's not really how it is in our opinion. So then that kind of made us step back and go, wait, maybe we're not going to do that, but what are we going to do? We don't have enough time to do all this by ourselves. And
Right.
it just, I feel a little unsure about how to tackle this problem of helping a whole bunch of people learn some things that are stressful and scary for them to have to learn in 2 months, and like put that all together so they feel resourced. At least it doesn't need to be a polished course. It can't be. That's ridiculous. That would be ridiculous to try to solve it that way. Some kind of just making people feel supported. I do have a page where I say, if you want to be helpful about these things, contact us and we'll add you to this page as a resource. So that's one thing that's pretty simple and I've already done. But kind of gathering people around the oomph, having the oomph to do it, is what I'm a little confused about how to do it right now.
So can you tell me more about, like, what does oomph mean to you in this context?
I think that what is going through the minds of a lot of my audience is like, oh my gosh, the tool that I learned in the first place took me forever and it was really hard and stressful. I don't want to do that again. So I'm out.
I see.
And I don't want that to happen too much, where it
Right.
doesn't need, where really it's not as bad as they're making it in their mind. If they could just have a little bit of help, it really wouldn't be that hard. If they could just decide in their mind that it was okay with them to put 5 hours into it between now and the end of April or whatever, it's not really that bad. And then they can move forward.
Right.
What's tough too, though, is like, I don't build them myself. I don't have any prototypes. I don't bring prototypes. I play test for others and I have a lot of industry knowledge and stuff, but I don't make board games. I make other kinds of experiences. So I don't fit, like, I can't exactly understand how they feel. I kind of can, but I'm not in the exact same position. I'm going to have to learn how to use these tools so that I can help them. And I'm also like, geez, I don't have time to learn that tool. I got these other things I need to do.
Sure.
So I relate to them in that way. But I can't even say, honestly, this is going to be easy. It's only going to take you an hour. I don't know. I got to figure it out too, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say, so here's kind of like, I think the shorter version, but I think I have to think about it a little more too, is that sometimes a easy answer doesn't yet exist, but there is a shared desire to move closer to a solution. So you are all sharing in this journey of trying to get better at finding a good solution and recognizing that it's not easy, but hard things are fun if you get to do them with friends. Right. And so almost trying to make that a bit of a game unto itself, or a quest, if you will, that, like, you know, we're on this ongoing journey to identify the various things that go into creating a good experience for us, given these constraints that we have. And it's a bit of an arduous journey, but it's one we get to go on together. And so we're going to figure out how to get better at this as we go. And you're going to figure this out too. And you don't exactly know how that's going to go yet, right? But you do know that you are committed to figuring it out. And that's where you, I think, can always stand on really solid ground, is that you're always going to be committed to learning and getting better at addressing this need. And it's going to be a continuous process of working with what you have, learning how to communicate and document it better, and refining it as you go. And maybe along the way, we're, you know, encouraging and supporting people who are building better tools to help bridge some of those gaps where the biggest pain points are.
Yeah, that's actually totally already on our list, which is
Yeah.
great. We actually do have contact with the developers that make these other tools that we are learning. So that's a big plus.
That's terrific. That's so great. And yeah, I feel like, you know, I try to, as we've talked about in the past, I try to avoid relying on software, like creating new stuff whenever possible and using what's out there. But sometimes new tools need to be built, and a community of passionate people is where those tools get built. And with the right context, you know, we've talked about doing like hackathons before, things like that. We can advocate for, you know, getting something built that needs to be built.
Mhm. And getting to be the beta people who are giving the feedback to the tool. You know, I'm hoping that we can have something going on like that with our community. Hey, guess what? There's this new secret tool. You get to give feedback at the beginning. I'm kind of, there is a glimmer of a possibility of something like that happening. That would be pretty cool.
I
So,
love that. Yeah, that's totally, that's getting you in a direction, like just that idea, like, ooh, check out this thing that's, you know, kind of secret. That's the journey that, you know, people will be, they're playtesters, right? So they'll have a thick skin for, you know, an unfinished experience if it's presented the right way.
mhm.
I think, Heather, as well, setting expectations of where I see this for events, and I try and do this. I give the purpose of the event, and then I say, who's it for? Who's it not for? So if it's not for those who don't want to learn just the new tool, and you kind of set that so that way they kind of self-select themselves out, and you've done your best at communicating what one can expect.
Yeah, and I'm telling myself that the thing that's sad about this is basically the reason we have to change tools is that the other tool would leave out a segment of our community. So it's like picking sides in a sad way that I don't really want to have to do. I'd rather be able to bring as many people with us as possible. So it's not like I chose these people and I didn't choose you. You don't matter, they do. That's not really the message I want to send. It's not really true, but it's just the unfortunate thing that falls out of the way this all went. So yeah. Life
Yeah,
is messy.
I
can't
think
have
we
it
can, I'm sorry,
you-
go ahead, Heather.
Life is messy and you cannot have it the way you want all the time. Sometimes things happen that you just can't. There's no like perfect answer. You just have to pick the best of two bad options.
And how you do that as a community is really what makes the difference, right? Sometimes you're going through something impossible, but you're going through an impossible thing with people together in a way that you feel like you're navigating it together. And that's the journey that we've been going on. And so you're going to keep going on that. And that's going to set you up well.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, my dudes, thank you so much for this. Appreciate your time. And thanks to anybody who's watching the replay. So good to have you along as well. And you two, I'll see you next time. Thanks so much.
Have a good week, you guys.
Take care. All right.
Bye, Tony.